Are you saying, like, I know that you're a prophet that God has given ideas to bless a city. In the past, the Lord's shown you containers that are for a new time. And so, and you've done it for your whole city. And God gave you these containers or these wineskins. You don't pour new wine in an old wineskin, but you build one for the times. And historically, you've already done this. Can you give us a couple of examples of containers that you've built for your family or your city or even the state of California? Can you give us a couple of ideas that God showed you by revelation that you built out to bless other people?
Well, yeah, Stacey, we got a prophetic word. I think it was 20 years ago. It may be 21. Actually, Bill was the one who received it from two prophets in a prayer meeting. I was in the prayer meeting, but he got the words whispered in his ear, and the word was, and I'll just summarize the two words. And God is looking for a city that would become a kingdom city in which it could become a model city where people would come from all over the world to see what it looked like, not to Christianize the city, but to kingdomize the city.
Wow. I just have to stop right there because on our program last week with Chuck Pierce, he said, a lot that it's very important to prophesy the kingdom. A lot of times because we live in different nations, prophets can have kind of a nationalistic perspective, and God does do things in nations, but ultimately we prophesy from the heavenly place for the kingdom so that his kingdom comes. And God actually gave you a word to build the kingdom in your city. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, he basically, and the prophet said, and Reading is that city. Wow. And so the goal was like, okay, so and then Stacey, you heard me teach this before because I've been teaching it for a long time, but we started learning about apostles, and what do apostles do? Like, what is an apostle? Because evangelist, pastor, teacher, prophet is pretty like not too hard to figure out a job description. But what is an apostle? And as you know, the word apostle means sent, but it actually means to be sent from a place to another place, to reproduce in the place you're sent to what you're sent from, till the place you're sent to looks like the place you're sent from, which we just simply call cultural transformation. So the Greeks came up with the idea, the Romans picked it up in the days of Christ, and they were, of course, wanted to conquer the world, and they were conquering the world. And as they conquered, cities, let's say they conquered 3 cities, what they found is when they go back to this first city they conquered, the people were back to their old ways. And the Romans, they invented the adage, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, they said, why are we conquering but not culturizing? And so they actually named some of their generals apostles from the Greek adage. And they sent those apostles out, of course, with their military to conquer. But what they did is they also sent teachers and government people, politicians, artists, all of that, so that they would conquer and culturize. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that Jesus' disciples, they grew up in that with those apostles, with those Greek Roman apostles. So then when Jesus, when he promotes them from learners, disciple means learner, right, to leaders, he names them apostles. And then he gives them the only prayer we've ever been taught to pray, which we know we should pray more than this, but our Father who's in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's an apostolic prayer. What's the prayer? Look around, you're seated in heavenly places, look around heaven and make earth like heaven. And then Jesus said, Matthew 28, right? All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Therefore, make disciples of all nations. It's a takeoff of Abraham, and you shall be a father of many nations. Just giving some scriptural context to, it was always God's intention to disciple nations, not just disciple in nations, but be disciples of nations.
That is so good. It's not a new concept.
No.
Some people throw around this language like new apostolic reformation. That's just a descriptive term, but we're really trying to get back to the original intent of Scripture as you've just articulated it.